IVM.
It's been another great week on IVM Podcast, and if you're not following us on social media, please do. We're at IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, etc., etc. On our latest episodes of The Seen and the Unseen, Amit Verma is joined by author and columnist Vivek Kaul to decode how the government uses and misuses data for optics management. On Pulyabazi, Pranay and Saurav talk to author Snigdha Poonam about her new book, Dreamers. On Football Twaddle, we have Azim Banatwala as a guest with Saru, Baru and Kumar discussing the end of the UEFA Champions League. And on Who's Your Mommy, Veda talks about mothers and how they cope with their constant sleep deprivation. As I said, it's been a great week, and please try and listen to as many of these shows as you can. And now, on to your show.
On today's Geek Fruit podcast, Jishnu and I are talking about Solo, our expectations from it, what we thought of it, our viewing experiences of it, and what we think about it going forward. Is this true, Jishnu?
Sure.
All right. We're going to get into all that and a lot more, including some facts about U2, our favorite band, right after this break.
Shunyavan, 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 Shunyavan.
$1 billion acquisition. Another copycat startup got formed.
No, the tech world in India is surely moving double the speed of this voiceover.
Tune in to Shunya One every Tuesday to catch us talking to the smartest people we know on the IVM Podcast website, app, or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Hello and welcome to the Geek Fruit podcast. My name is Dinkar, and with me is my best friend, Jishnu Guha.
Oh, shucks.
Am I your best friend?
Oh, pshaw. Oh, no,
Don't pshaw me. Answer the question. Am I your best friend or not?
No, let's not dwell on this.
Am I your best friend or not?
Oh, shucks.
Oh, I see. I have the answer. It's clearly yes, and you're just too embarrassed to say it.
Oh, pshaw.
Too shy to say it.
People don't say pshaw.
I believe the P is silent, like P. Smith in the P.G. Wodehouse books.
Wait, so you're saying, oh, shaw? No, nobody says shaw. Like,
Nobody
that's
says
a name.
oh shaw. It's just pshaw or oh shaw or oh shucks.
That's a totally different word.
It's shucks is a different word. That's
Yeah.
correct. Pshaw.
Yeah, you say pshaw.
It's a soft P.
It's a soft P, but you say
Speaking of soft P, let's discuss. Okay, why are we gathered here? Why is this entire gathering convening here today, Jishnu?
Yeah, so
Explain to
because
me.
last week we talked about Deadpool,
True.
and we didn't mention the fact that everybody's favorite band, U2, did the worst performance of their life on the Ellen DeGeneres show.
Yeah.
Guys, you need to see
and
this.
they're obviously
okay?
completely relevant
Now,
to each other.
This is actually 100% relevant.
Yes.
Believe me.
Okay,
I was
explain
thinking
yourself.
about this, right?
Yeah.
So U2 is a band everyone loves to hate. U2 is a band
Except
that
us.
we love.
Except us two best friends who love it.
Now, when somebody talks about the band that we love and hates on them, it's the feeling of nobody picks on my best friend but me.
Exactly.
Right?
We
So-
make fun of you two all the time.
Yes.
But nobody else can.
Nobody else is allowed to. Because
Yeah.
you need to have done the U2 marathon and like listen to all
Exactly.
however many albums. How many albums? 14?
13, right?
13? Something
Or
like that.
14 counting the last one? I
think
might
so.
have lost
Something
track.
like that.
Yeah.
You need to listen
Super
to all of them
fans.
back to back. Anyway, so here's the thing, guys.
Yes.
If you hate U2, I'm about to give you the best fodder to continue that hate. All right?
Yes.
You need to look up last week. This is, I think, the third week of May. Ellen DeGeneres show. For whatever reason, Edge and Bono decided to do a solo duo performance,
An acoustic duo.
an acoustic duo performance on a show.
Yeah.
They did one new song, which was all right. But then, for whatever reason, they decided to keep playing that damn Vertigo song.
Yes.
And holy hell.
With an acoustic guitar, and it's not an acoustic song at
Holy
all.
hell.
It
It
is
was
so
like
bad.
drunk uncles at a wedding,
Yeah.
but worse.
Way worse.
Much worse.
This feels like not even the drunk uncle who prepared something for the Sangeet.
Right.
This is the drunk uncle who, after seeing a couple of performances by the kids, goes like, hey, Edge, chal na. Let's do one song. You have guitar? Hey, Ramesh, give me the guitar. Yeah. And they go on stage and then they do this.
I think this uncle might have been at the wrong wedding, but just went straight to the bar and turned around and went, holy crap, that's not the bride and groom that I thought it was going to be. I should just stay here because if I leave, then people will think I was at the wrong place. But if I just act like I belong, then it'll all be okay.
Here's another misstep they made. They participated in a comedy sketch that seemed
Two of them.
improvised.
They did a two-part.
A two-parter
It was
where they
15
play
minutes.
Ellen's assistants. And it's so clear that Ellen knows how to do comedy and Bono and the Edge don't.
My God.
They're so bad.
I love this band with all my heart.
And
But
yet
that was atrociously
they make it
bad.
so hard to love them.
They really test our patience.
Jishnu, do you think someday in the future, I'm indulging in some geek fruit fan fiction here, but someday in the future, it'll be you and I performing Vertigo at a wedding, pretty drunk,
It
very
could happen.
poorly,
It could
when
happen.
our kids are getting married to each other.
Why not?
Your daughter, my daughter, because it'll be 2042 by then, and that's cool and legal.
What if our kids are using they/them pronouns?
They can still get married at that point,
Yes,
I hope.
they can.
Yeah.
See what I did? So this is completely relevant because, much like you two, people these days are starting to love to hate on Star Wars. And
It's
I say these days
starting to
when I
happen.
when I say these days, I mean for the last like 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, but recently in like the last 6 months, basically with The Last Jedi and with Solo, which is our topic for today, there have
I
been
feel
some
like it started,
divisive.
the creases started appearing, the cracks started appearing around the time of Rogue One, I want to say.
Yeah, that's more right.
Yeah.
That's more like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the crack became a full blown like
A
butthole,
fissure.
a full blown anus with Last Jedi.
Please don't talk like this in front of our kids. But alright, go on.
But they're not here.
Yes, but when they are, I'm saying watch your language.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yes, tell us about the anus.
So the anus is really just bloated with The Last Jedi because, I mean, everybody was primarily critical about what happened with Luke.
And
You know,
I'd just like to
hashtag
state
that's
that
not my
you're
Luke.
talking about people's perception, not ours, because
Not
we
ours,
have slightly
yes.
differing views.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I, for one, loved it.
As did I.
I absolutely loved Last Jedi. It's in
Exactly.
my top 3 for all
It's
I know.
a great anus.
So Solo, in that vein, is, I would say, no, I can't say it's more divisive because I feel like there's just less caring for it.
I feel like that's part of the
The
issue, right?
stakes
We're
were
entering
lessened.
the phase where people are starting to not care about Star Wars. Do you remember of course you remember it because we think about it every day of our lives, but the fervor when The Force Awakens was about to come out.
Absolutely.
Or like the fervor when The Phantom Menace was about
It was
to come
the
out.
fervor with which The Force Awakens was born is what conceived Geek Fruit.
Exactly.
Completely.
It
100%.
was like such a cosmically massive event that it created an entire podcast.
Very much. I would actually go so far as to say that if Force Awakens didn't exist, Geek Fruit might not.
But we'd still be best friends, right?
For
Oh,
sure.
come
Shucks.
on,
Oh,
Jishnu.
shucks. Oh, shucks.
I'm trying, so I give and I give and I give. Much like Disney keeps giving us Star Wars movies. So what worries me is where we seem to be reaching a saturation point where a new Star Wars movie is not a big deal.
Pretty much.
Look at the muted reaction to Solo. It's currently on track to be possibly the lowest grossing Star Wars movie, just making like $100 million or so-ish.
Just 100.
Just 100, which,
Yeah.
by the way, is possibly not enough for it to recover its production budget.
Yeah.
I mean, essentially, it's
Because
a
of the
production budget for
reshoots.
two movies.
It is the most expensive Star Wars. That's where I read
Because they
somewhere.
essentially shot two movies.
Exactly.
Yeah, we will get to that
We'll get
as
to that.
well at some point.
Yeah.
But yes, let's discuss the pre-roll to this movie, which is that there wasn't a lot of excitement going in.
Which I was very happy about.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, but that's me. Like as we all know, like I would say so far as to say hate trailers and the existence of them. And so I was very
I think
pleased that
your
there were
ideal
no
way to
trailers.
watch a movie, Jishnu, would be to be
Blind.
kidnapped,
Yeah.
blindfolded,
Yes.
thrown into a theater.
Oh my God,
They
yes.
pull off the blindfold, and that's when you find out what movie you're watching.
Yeah.
I feel like when
But you know, hey, wait. Let me
when
back
the
that up. Let
title
me back
screen
that up.
for a movie comes
No,
up,
no,
you
no,
shut
no.
your eyes and go like, no spoilers.
Let me back this up. That's happened to me twice.
You've been kidnapped and blindfolded.
Not kidnapped, but willingly gone into a movie with a friend who said, "Hey, do you want to go see a movie today?" This was back maybe like, hell, man, it might have been like 10 years ago for all I know. It was a long time ago.
Who's this other friend?
Her name
Then
is
your
Jamie.
second best friend.
Oh, she's probably like 1.5 best friend.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Because we
she's
all know who
pretty
your
close.
best friend is.
Yeah.
All right.
So she said, "Hey, do you want to go see a movie?" I said, "Sure." So we went to the theater. We didn't know what we were going to see. I ended up watching something so bizarre that I have no idea what it was called. I can't tell you the first thing about the movie, but it was incredibly forgettable. And it was a very painful experience because I was just like, I would
You
not.
don't remember what
I
this
don't-
movie was?
I
Okay.
just remember it was a really like effed up, bizarre, like pseudo horror comedy kind of thingy back in like 2007.
Was it a Saw movie?
I've seen every single one of those.
No.
I have no idea what this movie was. And the second time this happened was when me and my mom did the same thing. She's like, hey, you want to go see a movie outside? Yeah, sure, let's spend an evening with mom. And we ended up seeing Tree of Life, the Brad Pitt movie.
Yeah.
And I had no clue what it was about. The only reason we saw it is because Brad Pitt was on the poster. I was like, I like Brad Pitt. All right, let's check it out.
That's the least Brad Pitt movie can
Exactly,
get. It's a
right?
Terrence Malick movie.
Have
and
you
Brad
seen
Pitt.
it?
Yeah.
So
I love it.
I watched it up
It's
until
got
the
them
intermission.
dinosaurs.
Exactly. I know. I was like, why are dinosaurs here now? And we had
Because
no
it's
clue
a
what we were
Terrence
getting
Malick
into.
movie. He is the weirdest dude.
We were not prepared for this at all, and so then we left halfway through. Just like I've only done that twice in my life. Like
I
walked out of a
believe
movie.
Terrence Malick describes his movies as visual poetry.
It was visual something.
It was visual something for sure. I really like that movie, and
Maybe I should see it again with context because that was
yes.
just.
I mean, if you go in expecting a Brad Pitt movie and you see
Yeah.
The Tree of Life,
Yeah.
you're walking out going, "What?"
Yeah, I think that was hot on the heels of like Inglourious Bastards or something. Like it was around the time of that. I remember like sometime
I
around
think
then.
it might have been
maybe a few
couple-
years here or
yes.
there, but like I think that was the last movie of consequence I saw that Brad Pitt was in, and I was just like, I really like Brad Pitt because I love that movie.
I've done this tons of times where we kind of just walk into theatre going like, let's see what's playing. And I've found the experience to be enjoyable, more or less. But all of this leads us back to Solo. What were your expectations going in?
Not the highest, but very, very excited.
Did you sense that between us also, the Geek Fruit gang?
Yeah.
That we weren't... We didn't know what to expect, and we weren't sure what we wanted either. Like, I honestly didn't know what I wanted out of this movie.
Right. Because I think, much like with Rogue One, nobody knew what they wanted.
True.
Right? Same with this. No, I don't know what I want. When it comes to anything in the extended universe, be it, like your Clone Wars, your Rebels, whatever they may be, you don't know what you're getting into. All you know is, like, where you are in the timeline. That is literally all you're going with. And you pray that it's something
And
good.
of course, they're getting better at finding these little cracks in the
Right.
timelines now.
Yeah.
It's in the cut between two scenes is an entire trilogy.
I think I went on the record at some point and I said I had my money on it'll end much like Rogue One ended, in that a direct tie-in, like, minutes
to the
before.
scene?
Yeah, I was expecting
There's
like a
this,
straight up Mos Eisley, like you walk into Mos Eisley and Woody Harrelson goes, cue the Cheers music, everybody, and
Yeah.
then,
Exactly.
we hear the opening band for the Modal Nodes who plays the Cheers theme song
Nice.
before the Modal Nodes come on,
And then the end credit song is, of course, the Modal Note song.
pretty much.
But
But in a minor key, so it's on a,
Yeah. Are you aware that the song is called Mad About You? The Cantina
is that what
song?
it's
That's called Mad About You.
Do that one more time. Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you. One more time.
You see, you'd think I'd get sick of this, but I have listened to over 48 minutes of the 10-hour version of the song, which is on YouTube. Go find it.
I'm happy for you, but I'm quite sick of it. So let's take a break.
Oh, I think it's called Mad About Me.
We will take this break.
Because Mad About You is the
And
TV show.
We will then not do that ever again. Please press the stop recording button.
Yeah. It's IVM here, let's go. We the IVM kids on the block over here. Just to talk, taking a break from producing all day. Coming on this podcast cause we got stuff to say. IVM Daily is the name of the show. Monday to Friday, we ready to go. Talking about stuff in our head. We might even talk about our favorite bread. Signing out, it's IVM here, the podcast network that's in your ear.
Catch IVM Daily Monday to Friday on the IVM Podcast app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, we are back. This is Geek.
I've been doing that the entire break.
Face. So, actually, before we get any further into our thoughts about Star Wars, can you please
Star Wars story.
Can you please regale us with your viewing experience for it? I have heard. Unfortunately, I was not there, but I have secondhand information from Tejas Menon about the first time you watched it. You've seen it twice now, right?
Yes.
As have I.
Uh-huh.
Please tell tell me about the first time you saw this movie.
I fell asleep.
Why did that happen?
Because I was fairly canned and exhausted.
Because you spent 3 hours prior drinking Beefeater gin
Exactly.
at, shameless plug.
For Books on Toast.
For Books
Or
on Toast.
Not for Beefeater, who is not paying us for this plug.
Yeah, no.
So,
Shameless plug for Books on Toast.
An unnamed brand of gin that I drank at a
And-
Books on Toast party.
Thanks so much for inviting the Geek Fruit Gang to said Beefeater Gin evening.
We represented that. We won
Yeah.
things. They had a quiz.
And you also did a lovely little video podcast for them. Right?
Yes, we did.
On last week's
On last week's
Subject.
subject, where we discussed Deadpool.
Yeah, so just PT dubs in case you guys want to know, probably more than you already do, I think, because that was extensive.
The Deadpool thing?
The deep dive you did. Like I was expecting like a quick few minutes. That was like a solid 10.
Yes.
With like how many titles? You talked about like 9 different
We
titles.
talked about 9 titles.
Anyway, yeah. So if you want to know some more about Deadpool and where he came from and life and times of Wade Wilson, then look up the Geek Fruit episode of the Books on Toast podcast on the YouTubes about Deadpool and his friends.
Now,
So
we finally come to Solo, a
Yes.
Star Wars story. Once again, I feel like we're skirting around this issue. We haven't actually discussed our views. I don't know what you thought of it. So tell us, Jishnu.
I want to know why you fell asleep.
Because I was drunk and tired. And it was a very comfortable theatre. And the movie is exceedingly dull. The palette is almost grayscale. I complained about this throughout and after as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even on second viewing.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm not sure whether that's the movie itself. I think it's partly the movie itself and also it's 3D, where...
Right. So the colors get muted
Yes.
because of the glasses, but that's forgivable. But so you thought the whole thing was just dull in general?
In terms of look, yes. In
Yeah.
terms of the movie itself, let's get into it. What
Yeah.
did you think of the movie?
Okay, fine. I thought so I've seen it twice. On first viewing, I was sort of in and out of it a little bit because obviously you're wondering how much it's going to impact the trilogy that we know, how much it's
Okay.
going to impact the story arc and the character arc of Han. And one thing that I found myself thinking a bunch was, unlike with the new trilogy, unlike with The Last Jedi and Force Awakens, the new characters that exist in this movie, much like in Rogue One, you're constantly thinking, all right, are they going to die or are they just going to walk away from this scenario? Because you know that there's a finite ending and you know that some people will and some people won't continue on.
And that none of these people will actually matter
Exactly.
in Han's life specifically.
Right. So that being said, it puts the viewing experience in a weird dichotomy, which the new
Yeah.
movies don't have. right?
Exactly.
Because you're consuming it, questioning it the whole time. Like, should I care? Even though somebody's performance is great, even though the plot is going well, even though the character that I'm looking at is really cool, and I would normally on any other day really be invested in, say, Val and Beckett and all these people. I'm thinking to myself, do I really want to waste my time caring about this person?
Exactly. Much
so
like
it's not really
much like
fair.
Deadpool 2, the same analogy we drew last week. In this movie, if you had a post-credit scene where Han kind of jerks up and goes like, "Huh, that was all a dream. I was sleeping the entire time,"
Right.
it would make no difference to our lives
Sure.
because none of these characters
Yeah.
matter in
Yeah.
the rest of Han's life.
Right.
Yes.
So that now I'm gonna really jump the page for a second
Okay.
to the very end of the movie.
Like that Metallica song.
Yeah.
Jump the
by the
page.
way, I think we are consistent about this. We're
It's
gonna
a Bob
spoil. We're gonna
Seger
spoil
song.
the hell out of
Yes.
this. So I mean, fair warning to you. Okay. So spoiler warning. End of the movie with Darth Maul. Right. So in that same vein,
Sup with that, by
right.
the way.
Yeah, so we'll
yeah.
dig into him and his specifics in a second, a little later on in the episode. But what I want to jump ahead to is the fact that, like we said, we don't know how much we should care, right? Is there any value in Val and Beckett and L337 and all these people? At the moment, no.
No.
But between what freaking masterful work Filoni has done with Rebels, what Clone Wars has done, I finally started watching it and I'm so glad I am doing that. And now with the return of Maul, Star Wars is always clearly 10 steps ahead of the game.
Right.
And so nothing is as it seems. Absolutely nothing. There's always something planted and you never know because these guys are thinking literally years and decades ahead in terms of
Okay.
production of things, right? Much like with what Disney is kind of doing with the MCU and how things are coming back from way, literally 18 movies ago,
Right.
however many movies ago. In that vein, I have to have a little bit of me still thinking, well, even if somebody's dead right now, or even if somebody's, playing a very tiny role right now, like has done something of what seems like little consequence, there is potential for this to come back. Because, like we said, there is no end in sight for Star Wars movies. And now the Star Wars TV who's doing it? Benioff and DB Wise, right?
Benioff and DB Wise are doing another series.
Series or film?
A film.
A film?
A film series. A trilogy, let's say.
Who's doing a TV show?
Filoni.
Okay, it's only
That's
Filoni
Star
at the
Wars
moment.
Resistance.
Yeah, at the moment
The
it's only
animated
Filoni.
one.
Yeah. And Tejas and I will definitely do an episode on that. We finally finished watching Rebels, and Christ alive, dude, seriously. Come on, you need to see this show. But so what I'm getting at is, yeah, I was in and out of it, but at the same time, the fact that the mall thing happened, it kept reaffirming my belief in Star Wars as a whole.
Okay.
So like, even though this thing seems to be of little consequence, and right now you're thinking, okay, this was a pretty, I think forgettable is not too far of a stretch to say.
Yes.
Yeah, this movie seemed forgettable, or like seemed inconsequential. The fact that there's still, I think it's at least a handful of years between the end of Solo and the start of Episode 4, right?
Yes.
There's still plenty of things that can happen in there. And there are plenty of other TV series that are going on in that same timeline. And there are other characters that exist. And so, it seems inconsequential now, but I feel like it's not at all implausible that a few years from now we're going to go, holy crap, Beckett is back, or, Val is redeemed.
Solo
whatever.
2, Duo.
Yeah, that's great. So that being said, I am always
would
willing to
not
give Star Wars the
want
benefit of the
that.
doubt.
Sure, as am I. So I don't think this movie is... I think my biggest problem with this movie is that it feels inessential. It feels like an afterthought, sort of tacked on. It could have been really fun. I didn't go in with like the weight of expectations crushing me down or anything, because I think at least the way I was treating it was, as far as I'm concerned, he could wake up at the end of it and say it was all a dream. So if this movie is not good, I can forget about it. If it's good, then great. We have another great Star Wars movie to deal with. But what I've come out with is it's fine. It's a good movie in a lot of parts. But overall, if it wasn't for the fact that this was a Star Wars movie, it's a very typical throwaway adventure-ish movie.
Yeah.
Which I think is a problem, because essentially you're diluting the Star Wars universe, because we have such a high level of expectation from the Star Wars universe.
Right.
When you keep throwing in things, they start to feel like less of an event. I think there's been like diminishing expectations since The Force Awakens came out, right?
Yeah.
Force Awakens, everybody was losing their shit.
Right.
Last Jedi and Rogue One, relatively less. And the reaction's also comparatively mixed. We're going to see what happens with number 3 now.
Yeah.
But I think the same thing with Solo. There was so much confusion about like, should we care about this movie? How much of a big deal is it? Do we even want it?
Yeah.
And can you imagine us, say, 7 or 8 years ago saying, do we want another Star Wars movie? And
But
that's literally been what
right,
people are
and
asking. Do
though
we
that-
want a
that is-
Solo movie?
So that is the exact same situation that happens to anybody when they're on album 12.
True.
This is literally the whatever, 12. How many? I've lost count. I don't know how many movies there are at this point. 6, 7, 8,
9.
10. There are 10 movies.
10.
There are 10 movies, and God knows how many TV shows. And comics and all this stuff.
But
So
no,
it's like,
the only ones
yeah,
that,
like why should
there
you
are
care?
a lot more comics, but only the comics from like 2016 onwards are part of this Star Wars universe, they're canon.
Absolutely.
And the series is only Clone Wars and Rebels as
But
of now.
right, but my point is like it's the
But that's
fatigue,
already a lot.
The fatigue of the amount of stuff available and out there for you. It's overwhelming.
But I think that's a lot, right? Like,
Absolutely.
if we're
It's
starting to
more
feel
than
it,
a little.
Jishnu,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we are best friends and Star Wars fans.
Absolutely.
Then
Oh shit! Did I just acknowledge?
yes, you did. Finally, thank God.
Confound it!
I knew I trapped you into it
Foiled
eventually.
again.
It's a trap.
I feel like Muttley.
That's a Star Wars reference. So it's a trap.
Okay. Anyway.
Anyway, so yes, if we are starting to feel this sort of fatigue, then it worries me that the general viewing public...
For the record, I'm not.
Are you not?
Oh my God, no.
Okay.
Especially after Rebels, man. Seriously.
Well, I think
Look,
that's
okay.
That's another section of my problem.
Let's,
I think yeah.
No, pause for a second. Okay. You're not going to watch S.H.I.E.L.D. I
Of
accept
course
this.
not.
I accept this.
No.
You have to watch Rebels.
I know. I have to watch Rebels.
You have until episode 9 comes out.
Right.
You have to watch Rebels.
Yes, I know. I'll
Please,
tell you why
for the
I find
love
it so
of God.
hard. Can I just like take the show from you on a handy
Yes.
pen drive? Yeah.
Yes,
I-
that is
like,
not the problem here.
I've reached a point in my life where illegally downloading something seems like a bridge I can't cross. Not because of principle, just because it takes a lot of effort.
Okay, fine. I will alleviate your pain by just giving it to you.
Yes, thank you.
But my God. Anyway, sorry. Go back. What were you saying?
I was
have
I
no
was
idea.
giving you my pitch for Solo to
Yeah.
Duo, which I think is an amazing title, and they should make that movie for the title alone. But also, I think this movie should have stood alone by itself as a great story.
Yeah.
And it does not. If it
Right.
wasn't, I can guarantee you that if it wasn't a Star Wars movie, it's just
Absolutely.
a pretty much
It's a heist movie in
a
space.
slightly it's a heist adventure-ish movie and
Sure.
slightly above average.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even consider it among, like, say, Ron Howard's best movies.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
Totally.
which I think is a problem.
So do you want to talk about-
I have high expectations from Star Wars,
Mhm.
and they let them down slightly. I'm
Well-
not angry. I'm slightly disappointed.
Okay, so let's talk about the Ron Howard thing. So
Sure.
normally on most arguments about the fact that a movie has had a bunch of reshoots and maybe production head changing up and personnel changes, like with the Justice League and all that kind of stuff that happened, it doesn't really bug me too much, or I don't let it like cloud my view of the film. I sort of, for better or for worse, I say, well, you've put the movie out, whatever excuse you have is null and void because you've put the movie out and this is what it is, and I'm going to judge it on the finished product. I don't care what it took for you to make it and the circumstances under which. If you regret having made the movie, well, then you shouldn't have put it out.
Yeah.
So, that being said, the fact that this movie, as far as Ron Howard's involvement was concerned, he had to completely redo and recast the entire Dryden bit of it, which is arguably the leading, plot that sort of keeps everything together. Like, everybody
He
revolves
shot
around...
essentially the entire movie and rewrote a bunch of it because of like availability and stuff.
Yeah, and so thing is, I can't imagine, what kind of pressure that puts on a director when
But Ron
when you
Howard
have a
seems
finished
like
thing.
he takes everything so easy.
Yeah, true.
He'll
He's
be
a
walking
very,
around
he's a
like,
very
"Hey, guys,
smiley.
we can figure this out."
He's a very smiley guy.
Yeah.
Guys, it's just happy
Yeah.
days. It's cool. I'm
Yeah.
sorry I made that joke, but what I'm getting at is that I think if he's still willing to do something like this, he better be damn sure of it, damn sure of himself. I know it's a really cool, opportunity to get to direct your own Star Wars film, but you shouldn't do it unless you are absolutely confident. And I feel like there were definitely some scenes that felt like, I don't want to say phoned in from a direction standpoint, but I felt like it was very out of place. And what I'm getting at is the scenes where it was basically just nuts and bolts dialogue to keep characters moving along.
They were clunky.
They were clunky, but they were charming. And I think that that's the thing that this movie at least has going for itself consistently.
Yeah.
I found Alden's version of Han very charming. Lando was very charming.
As did I.
Everything about Chewie and all the characters in general
Exactly.
moving along are fine.
It's a
But-
fine movie.
Right, but,
Yeah.
but when it comes to the action sequences, especially the Kessel Run, which I think we were all like, frothing at the mouth of like, you better land this. Like, this has got to
So
be.
there was
this
this,
is it. This has got to be the thing.
There was this thing
It
that
was
was going
just-
around before the movie came out,
What?
which was a bingo card that some dude created that was called Han Solo Bingo, which was basically, it had a bunch of stuff and you were supposed to take it into the theater, and as stuff happened, you would mark it out. And he got most of them
Oh,
right.
I'm sure.
There's like, Solo is not his real name.
I'm
It's
sure.
not. The Kessel
Jesus
Run, of course it was. The best item, though, was he said the same thing that we said,
What?
which was that the movie would end with Han walking into the cantina.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. But so like, look at the Kessel Run.
Yeah.
So we've seen it twice. On first viewing, I was kind of confused. I didn't know what I was looking at. And then, because, it was, I didn't quite have a sense of place. I didn't know where we were exactly. I didn't quite understand.
Okay,
I didn't
I know
understand.
what you
I didn't
mean. Yes,
understand
yeah.
the nuts and bolts of how this.
Yeah, there wasn't like a clear.
How does it work?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like as a sequence by itself, it doesn't have like a clear stakes
Right.
or narrative.
Yes.
I want to say.
Yeah. It just the skeleton and the structure of it is kind of flimsy.
Once again, if it wasn't for the fact that knew this was the Kessel Run,
Right.
it would be such a forgettable sequence.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so that's the thing. That's not Ron Howard's strong suit.
No, it's not
look
his-
at, okay,
yeah.
so look at his filmography in the last couple of years. The last few movies that he's done that have been giant sci-fi driven, VFX driven movies were the Da Vinci Code films.
Wait, did you watch them?
We did.
Yeah.
I'm sad to say we did.
Yeah.
And
Which was the
case
last
in
one?
point.
Angles and Demons.
No, Inferno.
Inferno.
Remember
yes,
that?
Yes, we went
Exactly.
and watched Inferno.
Yes.
And it was so bad.
And the thing is, he has
I
Apollo
can't
13 to his
believe
credit.
He's made 3.
He has
of
Apollo
those.
13 to his credit. Huge
Yes.
credit. It's a
But
brilliant
tell me,
movie.
how much
But-
of Apollo 13 was special effects?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Apollo 13
it's-
is amazing because it's 3 people in a room. It's a
Exactly.
spaceship, but
Yeah.
it's 3 people in a room, and it's Tom Hanks, and it's brilliant. It's
Yeah.
just, but you're looking at 3 people talking. So whenever you're looking at this film of, Kira and Lando and Chewie and Han and Beckett and whoever the hell on the Falcon jibber jabbing about whatever, great. I'm all in. But then the
Yes.
minute the VFX kick in and the minute it's a big action sequence, the train thing, it was all right. It was definitely good. I can't say it was bad. It was perfectly fine. But he botched the Kessel Run. I would say
Yes.
I'd say he botched it because
Yeah.
yes, he did undo the argument of the parsec thingy and time versus speed or distance, whatever the hell. I don't even know.
It's
That
such
was
a
fine.
lame fix, by
Exactly.
the way,
It was
but cool.
just okay, cool. What's
It's
the quickest way to get this
always
over
a
with?
semantic argument
Right.
anyway.
Yeah.
We all know George Lucas messed up. Let it be. But now we have is the entire point of the A Star Wars story movies to fix nitpicks that Star Wars
Yeah.
fans have?
And this movie answered a lot of nitpicks that nobody was nitpicking at. I mean,
Yeah,
nobody cares where. I mean, did you know Solo wasn't his real name?
No.
Exactly, right?
That was
So it's just
the
why is
worst
this a
sequence
I was like,
of the movie.
I was like, why we didn't need that? We don't. You don't have to do this for us. I mean,
Exactly.
I'm happy to see. I'll put it this way: when the very first frame of the movie starts and Han jumps into the speedo, I was so excited.
Yeah, that
because
was fun.
I seen the trailer once, and that was the only thing I'd seen of Alden's Han coming up to this movie. So I went in completely blind. Obviously, we know about Donald Glover, and we know how great he is. So high expectations, which were all met perfectly. So he was great. But Alden Ehrenreich had the weight of the world on his shoulders.
Yeah.
And so incredibly bated breath going in.
Because Han Solo is Harrison Ford.
Right.
It's not like you're just taking on a role like Ryan Gosling style, where you're carrying forward a legacy.
Right.
He's literally playing Harrison Ford.
And he freaking nailed it.
He's so nailed
I don't
it.
know how he did it,
It was
but
incredible.
he did it and a half.
That was my first thought the first
so-
time I walked out and the
right,
second time I walked out.
exactly.
He's the best thing about the movie a lot of the time.
So to that end, he had, I think, between Ron Howard and Alden, they did the brunt of the work within seconds for me. I was already convinced, and I think the heavy lifting was already done within the first few minutes of the movie. And I think starting the movie off with a chase sequence was the perfect thing to do because that is the most familiar feeling of Han.
True.
Sitting in a chair, looking very nervous as he drives.
Yeah.
That's the default Han mode.
Yeah.
Being a pilot, very nervous and running away from bad things. But then, as the movie went along, you're giving me things like the blaster. You're giving me things like Solo's not your real name. I was like, so then what is your real name? The fact that he was called Solo, I was like, okay, but now I have to know are you actually Han Kenobi? Anything is possible now,
Oh man,
Right?
that would have been
So-
that particular scene though, where he asked him for his names, like
Yeah.
Han, who are your people? And he's like, and how many people? And then I was literally watching like, don't do it, don't do it,
Yeah.
don't do it, don't do
Yeah.
it. And he goes like, so
Yeah.
Han, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. Solo. And I was like,
Yeah.
don't do it. It was so bad.
Anywho.
It turned me off the rest of the movie for a while because it's such an easy way out. It's like they took the template of hey, what could a cool movie be? I mean, the fact that a dude could pinpoint major plot points of this movie on a fake meme bingo card is a problem for me.
Yep.
I feel like if we're putting out Star Wars movies every couple of months now, which sure, let's do it. I am all in, but surprise me. That's why I love The Last Jedi so much. It surprised me. This movie did
It
the
didn't.
op-
It didn't really surprise me,
Yeah,
except for Maul.
exactly. Maul
Should
was a ridiculous
So
surprise.
should we
Yes,
take another little breaky poo and
Yes.
then get into that old
cool.
flibbity gibbet?
Let's.
Hi, I'm Amit Verma, the host of the weekly podcast The Seen and the Unseen. In my show, I examine the scene effects and the unintended consequences of public policy and private action. I show how policies meant to help the poor often end up hurting the poor. I show how good intentions can lead to bad outcomes. I've had guests like Jayaprakash Narayan, Shruti Rajgopalan, Alex Tabarrok, Shikha Dalmia and Vivek Kaul on this show. And we've covered subjects from politics, economics, foreign policy to even parenting.
Catch the show every Monday on the IVM Podcast app or any other podcasting app that you prefer. Or visit seenunseen.in for all the latest updates.
Sup, welcome back to the Geek Food Podcast. I was thinking of doing my Cantina theme song again, but I feel like we should really get into it now. Explain this mall business to me. How is this a thing? So I have watched Rebels up to the point where I know he's around and everything, but how does he connect here? It was like out of the blue.
That's a great question, Dinkar. That's all I have for you.
You can't explain
I can't
any
explain.
more.
No. Yeah, I mean,
Okay,
that's
so,
about it.
So don't tell me like literally story-wise what he's doing.
Yeah,
But
I don't want to tell you
how
about.
closely does this tie into Rebels, and how did you feel about this revelation?
Overjoyed, like on the friggin' moon. Like I genuinely curled up into the fetal position in my chair.
Yeah.
And I had to watch the movie a second time, like I wasn't already going to, but I had to watch the movie a second time because the first time around, that entire scene with him and Kira was just gobbledygook.
Because it was so shocking
I
to
was,
see him?
I was in such a state of shock that I couldn't comprehend a single word that was being said.
I was
So-
actually reading this piece where where the headline was literally, and we talked about this last week, I think. The headline was, "Here's one piece of information you actually should have spoiled for you before you go into Star Wars." And so I read it after I saw the movie, and the
Which
argument, the Darth Maul appearance.
Oh, right.
So the guy's argument was exactly the same. He said, "I watched it, I saw Darth Maul, and I have no idea what happened after that
Yeah.
because I was just like, what is happening?"
I will say between Maul's scenes in brilliant scenes in Phantom Menace, he stole the show as far as I'm concerned. Phantom Menace, the Clone Wars, and Rebels, and now Solo. I think he's consistently the showstopper of cameo appearances in the Star Wars universe. Like
Yeah.
every time he's done a single thing in
Every
any
time
of
he
these
pops
movies,
up, you're like,
just
oh.
like, damn man, like how do you do it? I'm hesitant to tell you too much about it because I don't
So,
want.
yeah,
I
don't
don't want to
explain-
spoil. I don't want to spoil the other.
Okay, let me put it to you this way. Assuming that some of our viewers, or a majority of our viewers, haven't seen Rebels,
Yeah.
does having more context to his
Yes.
appearance improve the movie significantly?
Yes.
Yeah?
Oh my God, yes.
I see.
Because his story is very detailed. More so, I'd say, more than Rebels is Clone Wars. The Clone Wars 3D animated series, not the Tartakovsky
Yeah,
one.
I know.
That one sees a lot of story fleshed out from all post Phantom Menace.
Okay.
Rebels less so, but yeah. Again, I'm
But
not.
up to
I
the
don't want to
point
talk too much
so
about
I've
it.
watched up to where Maul appears,
Right.
and it seems
I
like
mean-
they're setting him up to be like a big bad of sorts.
He is definitely. He's definitely a big bad. But again, we'll do a separate Rebels episode very soon.
Sure.
I'm
gonna try and watch it before that.
Yeah, you really
Yeah.
should, man. It's
Okay.
so good. But yeah, so let's just put a hold on that side of the conversation.
Cool. So yeah, I think the takeaway can be that it significantly improves this movie.
Yes.
But I feel like that's a handicap. That's a crutch that Star Wars is using.
Right.
Which is fine.
But
we
now see-
love the thingy. But man, I
Look.
feel like they could do so much better. I'm whelmed. I'm
Totally.
not overwhelmed enough.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I want to bring up two things. One is that this harkens back to the Infinity War conversation that we had, which is that this is now a TV show. Even though it's a movie, it functions like a TV show, in which you cannot walk in on season 2, episode 7, and expect to know and understand everything and appreciate all the intricacies.
I'll tell you what though, interestingly, I have spoken to people who watched Infinity War without much context of without much context of the MCU in the first place, and they enjoed it as a movie.
Oh, because Infinity War is miles better.
Exactly.
And I mean,
it
just
still
as
works as a standalone
it's-
piece of
yeah,
filmmaking.
it is.
Not like it's not 100%, but
Right.
even if you walk into Infinity War cold,
Yeah.
it's still shooting at like 70%.
Right, you can follow along just fine. Not
Yeah.
to say that you can't follow this movie, but I feel like Star Wars is so
Low.
so vast with the universe that it's got. I mean, I'll put it this way: Star Wars is 30 years old,
Yeah.
and there's constantly been stuff. Even though the movies were on pause for 10-year, 20-year gaps in between, whatever, there were infinite number of video games, comic books, and TV shows in production consistently.
Yeah.
And that never really stopped. And so there's no... You really can't compare the MCU and Star Wars in that regard of things in terms of like world building, because while the MCU is amazing and has done it so well,
Everything in the universe is leading towards one point.
right, and they're
And
so
that's not
young.
the case with
They're
Star
only
Wars.
10 years young, and they've been
But with
building
more movies.
with more movies,
Yeah.
but they've been building with that agenda of bringing it all together. Star Wars, on the
Exactly.
other hand, is a bit more disparate.
I would love it if it became more disparate. That's again one of the things I loved about Last Jedi. It felt like they were building the universe out.
Right.
And with this movie, it feels like you're going back to the same well.
Yeah. So that's where it gets a little. I guess that's what gets divisive, because the thing is, one thing that people don't like is that this was fan service galore, but it was fan service to the real intense hardcore fans who know what. Oh crap! The word is escaping me. The form of martial arts that Kira knows.
Oh,
it was the one that Kira knows. She like just very casually mentions it for a hot second. It was based on a really shitty video game,
apparently.
Yeah, and so like and that's one of like 20, 30 different things that are just casually mentioned or like a side, frame or whatever. And so that's the thing. Like, is this movie worth more to a hardcore fan or to a casual fan? It shouldn't really matter. The movie should stand on its own. Mm-hmm. And the problem is that unlike Infinity War, which does stand on its own, this movie, as we said, is okay. So we can't say it. If it wasn't Star Wars, you wouldn't care as much and it wouldn't land for you emotionally nearly as much, because if it wasn't Han Solo and it was just some cool guy that drives spaceships really well, you wouldn't care nearly as much, right?
And I think that's a problem.
And that is a problem. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, like, part of the reason Rebels works so well is because it's different characters, right?
Yes.
Like, when the series starts, you don't know who Kanan is.
Right.
But you love the guy.
Yeah.
Within, like, 4 to 5 episodes.
Yeah.
And I like that they were able to tie the... And, like, I didn't even realize how much it was going to tie into the main storyline of Star Wars until, like... It doesn't even start happening until the second half of Season 1, I want to say. And even then, it's, delicate.
Right.
And from what I understand, Season 3 onwards is where it really starts tying in.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it still works great as a show by itself. And the fact that you care so much about the characters, even though they came, like, fresh out of the water, as far as we were concerned, is great. And I would love if they could start trying to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think a tiny little note is that this was the first movie that has no lightsaber in it and no real mention of the Jedi at all, which
is interesting,
which is to its detriment. And so while it's a weird dichotomy, while there's so much fan service and so many mentions and nods to like all corners of the universe, which can get overwhelming, at the same time, the big thing about Star Wars, if you think Star Wars, you think lightsabers, or you think Jedi, one or the other. Neither of them are in this.
Seemed like a very conscious choice, obviously.
It obviously was.
It had to be.
Obviously was.
But I feel like that kind of makes sense with Han's arc when we first saw him. He's an outsider and a skeptic.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Yes, but not completely, because he's a full-blown atheist at the start of Episode 4.
Yes.
He has to see Obi-Wan like disappear into thin air for him to believe, okay, this can actually be a thing, right? But at the moment, I see no reason for Alden's Han to be so anti-Jedi. I mean, he could be like ambivalent to it. He could be unaware of it. He could say, that sounds far-fetched. But at the start of Episode 4, he's like full-blown like, no. Like,
that's true,
it's
actually.
impossible for this to happen. So that being said,
maybe
they have left room for a continuation of this story. So
Solo 2,
it could still happen. It could still happen.
Yes.
But yeah, I think that kind of took away from it.
They should just
in a bizarre
leave it
way.
alone, though. I don't know. I feel like this movie could have been so much more, and it's not. It's fine, but I'm not going to look back on it particularly fondly. It's a thing that happened, and it's cool. It's fine.
Fair. That's fair.
Which worries me only because there's going to be so many more of these, and I feel like we can all, as a family and two best friends, hope that Star Wars does much, much better, because we know they can.
So to that end, I wanna mention something that has come up in conversation amongst a bunch of different shows and reviews that talk about the Star Wars world as intensely as we do. And we're at this point now, and we've been at this point for a while, but we're at this point where we're getting Star Wars stuff really quickly, as opposed to just a lot. There was always been a lot, but now it's like it's constant.
Yeah.
Or I guess there will be a bit of a pause until the Resistance shows up at the end of this year. But it's at this point now where...
That's not much of a pause, though, considering what we're used to.
Yeah, it's true, but I mean, then again, that... when you talk about the numbers, there aren't that many people watching the TV shows versus the movies.
I suppose so.
But what I mean is that, like, it's at this point now where the divisiveness is a little more than a little toxic. And when we did our live episode a few weeks ago, for May the 4th, one thing we talked about with regards to the prequel was more interesting than the argument of like, why do you love or why do you hate the prequels, is why do you care so much about the prequels or Star Wars in general? That's like it's a visceral argument. When people debate about Star Wars, they don't half-ass it.
No.
You have real thoughts about this.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, what do you think about the Ghostbusters reboot versus the original?
Oh, people had thoughts about that.
People have thoughts, but nowhere close to the fervor with which people argue about.
For the Ghostbusters reboot?
Yeah, man.
I mean,
compared to like
I know
the
what
Star
you
Wars
mean,
arguments,
but
like
that's not the best example because remember how everybody trashed it because it was a female reboot?
Right, no,
it's still the most disliked video on YouTube, I believe.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There was a massive online
seriously?
fan campaign saying, how can they do this to Ghostbusters?
Oh, jeez, okay.
So I know your point.
Okay,
but
so the thing is, I clearly stayed away from that because I didn't want to, I don't want to be around that kind of energy. And so what I'm getting at is that a lot of people have been talking about this, but two people that I really need to give a shout out to are from IGN. Mm-hmm. Brian Altano and Max Colville have a show called Up at Noon, which we've been watching for a couple of years now, and it's a really great show. It's a weekly show, and you can find it on YouTube. And they recently did a very brief review of Solo, but more about just the world that exists now with Star Wars and like how we consume it. Yeah. And it's gotten to a point where it's like you said, you're quite whelmed. There are plenty of people that are far more overwhelmed than either of us are, and we're still
overwhelmed positively.
Oh, just whelmed in general of just like why is there so much Star Wars all of a sudden? Like I'm so used to being able to consume it, at my own pace, and now it's no longer at your own pace because you're just it's gonna get shoved down your throat.
Yeah.
So I think people need to appreciate the fact that it's a business. It's a giant multi-billion-dollar franchise that is not going to stop because it's clearly working. Even though this movie has done as mediocre comparatively as it has, it's still $100 million.
It is, yes.
And it's only going to keep growing because that's just the first weekend alone.
Correct.
So in 3 days, it's made $100 million. That might be the lowest, but that's still insane. So you have to accept the fact that it's going to continue. And if you don't like it, that's perfectly fine because it's going to continue with or without you. And you need to...
see what you did there.
See what I did. But you just need to take a break if you want to take a break and don't involve yourself in it. And definitely don't go and, give people that love the stuff a reason to not like it. Because a lot of the complaints people have with this movie, with Last Jedi, with Rogue One, and with just general Star Wars isms galore, they're all valid. And a lot of them are really good reasons to like second guess why you love this or why you turned a blind eye to that gaping hole in the plot or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I feel like because the consumer today has so much power because the internet to like then just spread whatever propaganda basically you have your own agenda
like
against
the
Star Wars,
Ghostbusters
like the Ghostbusters thing. Just don't, and just take a break. Like if you don't like it, don't watch it.
Exactly.
Don't discourage other people from watching it.
That would be great. I agree completely.
Yeah.
Part of the problem with Star Wars is I have two separate issues that this movie is bringing to the front. One is that the toxic nature of Star Wars fandom can get really bothersome.
Yeah.
Because people don't be dicks about it, man. We all like Star Wars. Some of us like something, some of us like other things. Let's all be friends. Firstly, that. But secondly, the fact that you can just be whelmed rather than overwhelmed by a Star Wars movie is a worry to me. It's like, again, I'm fine with it. Keep putting out stuff. Like, there's tons of comics, by the way, which I've read a fair amount of. Like, the Vader solo series is actually like a great piece of Star Wars storytelling. But you're free to ignore those if you want. But if you keep putting out like giant tentpole movies and going like Solo is coming out, particularly because it's Han Solo, a character we know and love, then I don't want to reach a point where a new Star Wars movie doesn't evoke joy.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
And anyway, speaking of evoking joy, do you have any other thoughts? Because if not, I'm going to give you a gift as my best friend.
Oh, give it to me now.
All right. Well, let's just say that's it for our episode because I want to take us out on this genius piece of viral content, shall we say. But that's it for us talking about Solo. I feel like there's so much more to say about this movie, and I want to hear what everybody has to say.
I do.
Unless you're going to be dicks about it.
Yeah.
So you can write into us. Contactgeekfruit@gmail.com is a email address. You can talk to us on geekfruit.in. There's a handy little contact button, and we're at geekfruithq on all the socials. Now, to get to what I really want to talk about, which is,
Oh God.
have you seen
I'm
the
scared.
song "Am Han Solo"?
No.
Okay, it's a
Jesus.
Kinect video game
Okay.
that features a parody of the
no.
Jason Derulo song "Riding
Oh
Solo."
God.
Called
Oh,
Am Han
I've seen.
Solo.
Yes, I've seen like a
Oh,
spot
have you?
second
It
somewhere.
has-
I don't know where I saw this. Oh Christ. Remember when I said you're not my best friend?
No, I don't remember that. You said it on the record. It's a thing now. This has been the Geek Fruit Podcast. See y'all, you nerds.
As you can see, we have a podcast listener in his natural habitat. Billions of years of evolution have led him to this point. He's on his way to work, and listening to podcasts makes his miserable day better. He will now head to work and use all his knowledge to communicate with other colleagues and possibly future mates. You can find more of his species on ivmpodcasts.com, your one-stop destination where you can check out all the coolest Indian podcasts. Happy listening.